I can tell you the exact night my wedding disappeared. Not the day we got married. Not the day the photographer sent over the edited gallery. Not the first time my mother-in-law called the photos a little urban and suggested we pick something more timeless for the framed prints. No. I mean the night I picked up my phone to look at my favorite pictures, the silly ones, the unflattering ones, the ones where my makeup was already half gone and my smile was real, and found nothing but empty space. I was on the couch, one leg tucked under me, half watching some cooking show I wasn't really interested in. It had been a long week. I was tired in that full-body way where your brain feels like it's moving through mud. I just wanted something soft, something good, something that reminded me there had been a day where everyone I loved was in one room, and it was about me. I'm 36 now. The wedding had been 3 years earlier. By then, the big day had settled in my mind as one of those core memories you go back to when life feels heavy. And somehow, my phone had become the real photo album. Not the leather-bound book on the coffee table that Patricia, my mother-in-law, approved and helped curate. Not the framed black and whites in the hallway she called classy. My phone was where the truth lived. The pictures the photographer didn't think were brand consistent. Me and my bridesmaids in silk bonnets eating chicken wings in our robes. My cousin's toddler asleep under the gift table. The sweaty, messy, joyful dance circle when Before I Let Go came on and half my family forgot there was a camera in the room. So that night when my brain felt like a gray sponge, I did what I always do, opened my Photos app and scrolled straight to that little wedding day album I'd made. Only it wasn't there. For a second, I thought I was just tired. I scrolled up, down, dragged my thumb across the screen, like maybe the album was hiding behind another one. Travel, work, screenshots, receipts. No wedding day. My heart gave this weird little hiccup. I typed wedding into the search bar, like the phone might suddenly remember who I was. Nothing. I backed out and tried scrolling by date. I knew exactly where that day should be. My thumb moved faster, past holidays and birthdays and random memes I'd saved, until I hit the month of our wedding. There were a few photos, a screenshot of the weather that day, a blurry shot of the venue being set up. But the hundreds of pictures I'd taken, the ones from the bridal suite, the reception, the after-party, gone. A cold, prickly feeling crept up the back of my neck. The TV might as well have shut off. The whole room narrowed to the tiny glowing rectangle in my hand. "Come on," I muttered, more to myself than the phone. "Stop playing." I opened recently deleted. Empty. My stomach dropped. I stared at that blank screen, like if I looked hard enough, the photos would reappear, sheepish, like kids caught hiding behind the couch. Nothing. Suddenly I was back in Patricia's kitchen that afternoon, watching her wipe my phone screen on the corner of her dish towel. "You should put this away," she'd said, tapping it with one French manicured nail. "Phones ruin moments. You young folks are so obsessed with documenting everything, you forget to actually live it." I'd laughed it off, because that's what you do with Patricia. You pretend the jab is a joke and hope she doesn't sharpen it. But I remembered setting my phone on the counter when she asked me to help her carry a roasting pan out to the garage fridge. I remembered being gone for a few minutes. I remembered coming back to find my phone exactly where I'd left it, angled, face down. "Jordan?" My voice came out too loud, cracking around the edges. He was in the bedroom, playing some game on his console, headset on. I heard his muffled, "Yeah, babe," through the wall. "Can you come here for a second?" Something in my tone must have carried, because he paused the game and came out faster than usual, socks sliding a little on the hardwood. "What's wrong?" he asked, eyes jumping from my face to the phone and back. "My wedding photos are gone." He blinked. "What?" "The ones on my phone." I swallowed, suddenly aware of how dry my mouth was. "The album I had, it's just not there. And recently deleted is empty, like someone went in and cleared it." Jordan frowned, took the phone from my hand and did the same thing I'd just done. Scroll, search, scroll. Like his thumbs would magically trigger something mine hadn't. "Are you sure you didn't back them up somewhere?" he asked after a minute. "Google Photos? The Drive?" "I'm sure," I said. I backed up some. The photographer's folder is in my email." "But these were my pictures, the ones I took. They were only on here." "Maybe you accidentally deleted them?" he said, still not looking at me. "You know how sometimes you're clearing space and—" "I didn't," I snapped. "Jordan, I would remember." He finally looked up, and I saw the flicker of annoyance he tried to hide. "Okay," he said slowly. "Then maybe it was a glitch. Phones mess up all the time. A glitch that empties my recently deleted folder too?" My voice was climbing, and I couldn't seem to stop it. "Come on, that takes like extra steps." He hesitated. That tiny pause was all I needed. "You were with your mom today," I said, the thought clamping down in my chest. "She had my phone. I left it in the kitchen when she asked for help. She's always talking about how many pictures I have, how I live in my phone." Jordan's jaw tightened. "You're saying my mom went through your phone and deleted your pictures? Why would she do that?" "Because she once told me, 'You're a little too into yourself,' when she saw my saved mirror selfies. Because when we got our photos back, she complained that there were too many shots of your side and not enough of the family. Because during wedding planning, she'd looked straight at me and said, 'This isn't a photo shoot, dear. It's a sacrament.'" But I didn't list all that. I just stared at him. "Does it really sound that crazy to you?" I asked. "She's never liked the photos I take. She's never liked how much I love that day." Jordan let out a breath, rubbing the back of his neck the way he always does when he feels cornered. "Look," he said, "my mom can be extra. I'll talk to her. But you're jumping to a big conclusion here. Mistakes happen with tech, and they're just—" He caught himself too late. "Just what?" I asked quietly. "Just photos," he finished. The words hit me harder than I expected. I felt them all the way down my spine. "Just photos," I repeated, "of my wedding, of my family, of a day you barely remember because you were too busy taking shots with your boys while I made sure everything actually happened." "That's not fair," he said quickly. "You know I was there. You know I know you didn't cry when the photographer sent the gallery link," I cut in. "I know you didn't stay up until 2 a.m. choosing which ones to print. I know you didn't save every stupid little moment on your phone because you were scared that one day the official pictures wouldn't be enough to hold how it felt." Jordan sighed. "Babe, you're spiraling," he said, voice softening into that patient tone that somehow always made me feel like a child. "We can email the photographer, get the files again. You're making this into a whole thing when it doesn't have to be." "A whole thing?" I repeated. Heat behind my eyes. Someone went into my phone without my permission and erased pictures from my wedding day. And you think I'm making it a whole thing? He handed the phone back. It felt heavier than before. "I'm saying," he replied carefully, "that it's not worth World War III. Look at you. You're shaking. Over pictures. My mom is almost 70. She grew up in a time when you took a few photos and put the album away, not thousands on a phone. She probably just thought—" "So you do think she did it," I said. "You just don't want to be the one to admit it." Silence. There it was again, that tiny, damning pause. He didn't say yes, but he didn't deny it either. He just looked tired. "Even if she did," he said finally, "does it matter this much? They're digital. We can replace them. She's my mother. She's not going to be here forever. I'm not going to fall out with her over some pictures. You know how she is. Sometimes you just have to let things go." The words lodged in my throat like a foreign object. Let it go. Let it go when she accidentally forgot to mention I was allergic to shellfish and ordered shrimp for me at her country club dinner. Let it go when she introduced me as Jordan's wife, but never by name. Let it go when she suggested we wait a while on kids because raising children in your side of town is different. Now, let it go when she reached into the one private, sacred archive of that day and erased me. I stared at my husband, the man who had vowed to love and protect me, in our small living room, under our cheap floor lamp, in the apartment we'd put together piece by careful piece, and for the first time, I saw the shape of something I'd been trying not to look at. It wasn't just that his mother didn't respect me. It was that he didn't respect how much it hurt. "I'm not asking you to fall out with her," I said, voice low. "I'm asking you to stand up for me, to say, 'Mom, that wasn't okay. Don't touch my wife's phone. Don't erase her memories.'" He looked away. "You know she'll just deny it," he muttered. "Then she'll cry. Then my sisters we call. It'll turn into drama. Is that what you want? Holiday group chats blowing up because you're accusing her of hacking your phone? What I want," I said slowly, "is a husband who's more worried about his wife crying on the couch than his mom crying on the phone." The words hung between us, sharp and heavy. Jordan opened his mouth, closed it. "I'm tired," he finally said. "We've had a long day. Let's not do this tonight, please. Just email the photographer. I'll even pay whatever extra they charge. But don't start a war over this. It's not worth it." He leaned in to kiss my forehead. I leaned back without meaning to. He noticed. The hurt flashed across his face and then was gone, buried under that familiar layer of "be reasonable." "I love you," he said quietly. I didn't answer right away. At that moment, love felt a lot like being asked to swallow a lit match and pretend it tasted like cake. He went back to the bedroom a minute later. I heard the soft click of the door, the muffled restart of his game. Life for him slid back into its usual groove. I stayed on the couch with my empty photo album and my full, aching chest. For a long time, I just sat there, thumb hovering over the screen like maybe if I wished hard enough, the pictures would come back. They didn't. Eventually, I opened the photographer's gallery email, scrolled through the polished images, the ones everyone had seen, the ones Patricia had approved. They were beautiful. They were also incomplete. All the little in-between moments I'd caught, gone. Just gone. I didn't cry loud. There was no dramatic sobbing, no wail that would have made him come out and comfort me. It was quieter than that. The kind of crying where your face stays mostly still and the tears just fall, one by one, soaking your shirt. In the space of one evening, I'd lost more than photos. I'd lost the illusion that my memories, my feelings, my version of events mattered as much as everyone else's. And that, more than the empty wedding day folder, was the thing I wouldn't be able to let go. To really explain why a few missing gigabytes on my phone cracked something open in me, I have to go back. Because that night on the couch wasn't the first time Patricia tried to edit me out of my own life. It was just the first time she succeeded. When I first met her, I was still in that hopeful stage where every red flag looks like a misunderstanding. Jordan and I had been dating for about 8 months. Things were getting serious. I'd met his sisters, his cousins, even his barber. Everyone had some version of, "You met Moms yet?" and laughed like that was the final boss. I thought they were exaggerating. Patricia invited us over for Sunday dinner. I remember standing on her porch in my favorite mustard yellow dress, palms sweating on the casserole dish I'd made because my mama raised me right. You don't show up empty-handed. Patricia opened the door, gave me one slow look from my twist out down to my heels, and smiled. Not a warm smile, not a mean one either. More like she'd just finished reading my resume and wasn't quite sure if I was qualified. "You must be Simone," she said. "You're very pretty," in a bold way. Bold. I laughed it off back then. Told myself she meant my lipstick, or my dress. Not my skin, not my hair, not my entire existence. Inside, her house was all white walls and beige furniture and framed photos of Jordan at every age. Jordan as a baby, Jordan at graduation, Jordan at his first corporate job, looking slightly uncomfortable in a suit that didn't fit yet. "Did you bring something?" she asked as she led us to the kitchen. "Mac and cheese," I said, lifting the foil. She peeked inside. Her mouth twitched. "Oh, how creative. We already have some. My sister made the family recipe. You can just put yours over there. On the counter, in a corner, next to the trash can." It was a tiny moment, a nothing moment. But I remember how my chest pinched, how Jordan didn't say anything. Later, when her mac and cheese dish was scraped clean and mine sat untouched, he squeezed my knee under the table and whispered, "They're just stuck on tradition. Don't take it personal." That became the theme. Don't take it personal when she asked if my hair was real the first time I wore it in a twist out instead of a silk press. Don't take it personal when she introduced me at her church as Jordan's girlfriend, but never once said my name. Don't take it personal when she told me, "You know, a wife is a reflection of her husband," after I posted a photo in ripped jeans and a graphic tee. When we got engaged, the micro things turned macro. Patricia had been planning her son's wedding in her mind since he was a toddler. The only problem was that she didn't seem to think the bride needed a say. "We'll do it at St. Matthew's," she said, eyes already distant, seeing lace and candles and string quartets. "You'll wear something classic, simple, timeless, nothing trendy." "I want my cousin Tay to do my makeup," I said. "She's amazing. And my friend Kara is a photographer." Patricia's lips tightened. "Sweetheart, weddings aren't the time for experiments. You hire professionals for a reason, people with a certain aesthetic." A certain aesthetic turned out to mean white photographer, white planner, florist from her country club, and a caterer that does more refined food than what your people usually serve. I felt my jaw clench. My people. Jordan saw it, squeezed my hand. "We can mix it up," he said quickly. "Do both. Have the fancy stuff and some soul food, too." "Within reason," Patricia replied. "We don't need anyone's hands greasy in the photos." I should have walked away then. Honestly, told them both if I wasn't good enough as I was, they could marry each other and leave me out of it. But I was in love. Deep, blind, stubborn love. So I compromised, one shell at a time. When the photographer sent us style options, classic, airy whites versus more vibrant, saturated, candid shots, I circled the vibrant ones. Patricia circled classic with a red pen. "You'll thank me later," she said. "In 10 years, you don't want to look back and see trends. You want elegance." My mama, on the other hand, wanted to see joy. "That photographer better catch your Uncle Reggie when Before I Let Go comes on," she said, cackling over the phone. "If I don't see those knees in at least 3 shots, I want my gift back." We found a compromise. The official photographer Patricia approved, and my friend Kara doing a quiet second shoot. Plus, me with my phone, sneaking moments when no one was looking. "You and that phone," Patricia muttered more than once during the day. "Always taking pictures, just enjoy the moment." I said, I was enjoying it. That was the whole point. I wanted proof that I'd been there, that I'd been happy, that it had been real. The first time she saw my phone album, it was 2 weeks after the wedding. We were at her house again for Sunday dinner. She asked how the photos turned out. I lit up, pulled out my phone like a parent showing off baby pictures. "Look," I said, scrolling. Tay caught this shot of Jordan looking at me before I walked down the aisle. And this one? This is when my little cousin dropped the ring pillow and everybody started laughing. Patricia leaned in, her perfume hitting me first. She watched the screen for a grand total of 8 seconds before she frowned. She said, "Some of these aren't very flattering." I blinked. "They're real." "Real doesn't always mean appropriate," she replied. "You don't want people seeing you half sweaty and dash all that." She gestured vaguely at my cleavage in one shot where my dress had shifted after an hour of dancing. "It's my phone," I said. "It's just for me." "For us." Well, she said, straightening, just be mindful. What you put out there reflects on Jordan now. People judge. They'll say, look at his wife, always on display. I didn't post any more wedding content after that. Not the silly shots. Not the drunk groomsmen. Not my mama dancing with my nephew in her church shoes. My thumb would hover over the share button and Patricia's voice would whisper, they'll say, look at his wife. So the memory stayed in my phone where I thought they were safe. Looking back, the signs are obvious. The time she accidentally cropped my mama out of a family group photo before printing it for her wall. The way she always wanted to take one more, just us, after we'd pose as a whole group. Me, my family, Jordan's, and somehow the framed version on her mantle never included my people. The email chain where she forgot to CC me on major wedding decisions. Then told Jordan, it's just logistics. She doesn't need to worry her head over it. Every tiny, painless cut that didn't quite bleed on its own. The thing about small cuts is, you don't notice how deep they go until someone presses on the bruise. That night on the couch, with my empty photo album and Jordan's Just Let It Go echoing in my skull, something finally started to bleed. The next day, I drove to Patricia's house. Jordan was at work. He assumed I'd done the reasonable thing and emailed the photographer. I hadn't. I left my phone in the car on purpose. I didn't trust myself not to say something wild if I had the receipts in my hand. Patricia opened the door with that same measured smile. Simone, she said, what a surprise. Jordan's not here. I know, I said. I came to see you. Her eyebrows lifted just a fraction. She stepped aside. Well, come in then. Her kitchen was spotless, as always. A bowl of lemons on the counter, like a magazine ad. I sat at the island. She poured coffee without asking how I took it. You look tired, she observed, sliding the mug toward me. Are you two fighting? I looked at the coffee. At her. At the spotless counter where my phone had sat yesterday. I came to ask you something, I said, and I want you to answer me honestly. She laughed, a dry little sound. That sounds ominous. Did you go through my phone yesterday? I asked, when I left it in here to help you with the roasting pan. Her face stayed neutral, but her hand tightened slightly on the counter edge. Of course not, she said. I'm not a teenager. I don't snoop. My wedding photos are gone, I said. The entire album. Someone deleted it and emptied recently deleted. The only time my phone wasn't on me was when I was here. She stared at me for a long moment. You think I would do something like that? She finally asked. That I would sit here and delete your pictures? I think, I said slowly, that you've never liked how I document things, and that you've said more than once that I'm obsessed with that day. And that you've done little things before to control how that day looks in your house. Her eyes flashed just for a second. You're being dramatic, she said. Pictures don't just vanish because someone disapproves. Technology fails. Clouds crash. Storage fills up. You young people act like your phones are sacred altars. They are to me, I said. Those photos were mine, not yours. Not the ones you picked and printed and cropped. Mine. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. What exactly are you accusing me of, Simone? I swallowed. I'm asking if you touched my phone, I said. If you opened my photos. If you deleted anything. She let out a breathy laugh, like I'd told a tasteless joke at a funeral. You know what your problem is? She said. You hold on too tight to everything. To your stories, your pictures, your version of events. Sometimes we have to learn to move on. To let go of the messy parts. The messy parts? I repeated. You mean me? Her lips pressed together. If you're so worried about your little cell phone moments, she said crisply, call the photographer. Have them resend everything. Honestly, Simone, if a few missing pictures can rock your marriage, maybe the problem isn't me. There it was. She hadn't said, yes, I did it, but she hadn't said no either. She'd done what she always did, turned it back on me, made me question my sanity, my right to be upset, my right to have a narrative separate from hers. I stood up. I didn't say it was rocking my marriage, I replied, voice shaking. But the way you went into my phone, erased what you didn't like, and now pretend it's no big deal? That's a problem. I told you, she said, standing too. I didn't touch your phone, and frankly, I'm offended you'd accuse me. You just admitted. I admitted nothing, she snapped. Now either you stay for lunch and we act like adults, or you leave and take your attitude with you. I'm too old for this. I looked at her, really looked at her. At the immaculate kitchen, the curated family photos, the tiny edge of panic at the thought of anyone seeing her son's life from a perspective she didn't control. And suddenly, I understood. It wasn't about the pictures. It was about power. It was about who got to decide which moments counted, which images were worthy of being remembered, which version of the story survived. You know what? I said quietly. I'm going to go. She sniffed. Suit yourself. I walked to the door, my chest tight, my hands cold. My reflection flashed in the hallway mirror. Tired eyes, forced posture, a woman permanently braced for impact. Simone, Patricia called just as I opened the door. I turned. She wiped an imaginary speck off the console table, not looking directly at me. If you want this marriage to last, she said in that calm, weaponized voice of hers, you'll have to learn when to hold on and when to let things go. Jordan needs peace, not constant drama. For a second, the sting of it made me want to defend myself, to explain, again, how much those photos meant to me, to beg her to see me as something other than a problem. But the words dried up. Instead, I just nodded once, stepped outside, and closed the door behind me. In the car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel, heart pounding. It hit me then. The deletion wasn't just some petty little act of control. It was a message. You don't decide what matters here. You don't get to keep what we don't approve. You can be in the picture as long as we own the camera. And my husband, the one person who should have been on my side, had told me to let it go. Driving home, something in me shifted. I still didn't know how I was going to respond. I wasn't ready to burn everything down or pack a bag. Not yet. But I knew this much. I was done apologizing for wanting to keep my own memories. And I was done pretending that Patricia's little edits to my life were harmless. Because once you understand that somebody is willing to erase your past to make themselves more comfortable, you start questioning whether you can trust them with your future. The weeks after I walked out of Patricia's house felt like living inside a glitch. On the surface, nothing changed. I still woke up at 6:30, still made coffee, still sat at the tiny two-person table Jordan and I bought off Facebook Marketplace when we first moved in together. We still brushed past each other in the bathroom, still swapped love yous on our way out the door, still watched the same shows on the same sagging couch at night. But underneath, something was off. Like someone had shifted the gravity 3 degrees to the left and expected me not to notice. We didn't talk about the photos. Not really. Every time I tried, Jordan would tense, his whole body going on defense. Babe, we re-downloaded the photographer's link, he'd say. We ordered a second album. We even got the USB drive. You've got more wedding pictures than most people. Why are you still stuck on this? Because they're not my pictures, I wanted to scream. Because they don't have the shaky selfie we took in the church bathroom where my veil fell off and we laughed until my mascara ran. Because they don't have the moment my mama fixed my lipstick with her thumb and whispered, "You ready, baby?" Because they don't have the angle only I could see when I looked out at that room and thought, I did this. We did this. Instead, I said, it's not just the photos. It's always something with you, he muttered once, under his breath. Not quite soft enough. I heard it. I heard a lot of things I've been pretending not to hear. Like the way he said my mom with this built-in disclaimer. Like she came as a package deal I should have read the fine print on. Like the way he'd started saying, that's just how she is, the same way people say, weather's crazy. Huh? About something they have no control over. One night, about a month after the photos vanished, I woke up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding like I'd been running. The thought came out of nowhere and sat on my chest like a weight. If we have kids, she'll do the same thing to them. It wasn't the dramatic image, nothing cinematic, just a simple, ordinary scene. Patricia at some future birthday party, insisting on one more picture of just us, arranging herself front and center while I balanced a toddler on my hip. Patricia helping upload baby photos to a shared family album, quietly removing the ones where my side of the family looked too loud, too much. Patricia accidentally posting the pictures where I looked tired, swollen, not put together, with captions like, "New mom life is rough," while carefully curating her own images. Patricia deleting anything she didn't like. Again. And Jordan saying, "She's just excited. Don't make this a whole thing." I stared at the ceiling in the dark and realized I was more afraid of sharing my children with her than I was of not having them at all. That thought shook me. The next morning, bleary-eyed over coffee, I said, "We need counseling." Jordan looked up from his phone. "For what?" "For this," I said. "For us. For the fact that I don't trust your mother. For the fact that I don't feel like you've got my back. For the fact that I can't stop thinking about what happens when this isn't just about deleted photos, but about our kids, our life." He sighed. "We don't even have kids yet. Why are you borrowing problems from the future?" "Because your mom is already a problem in the present," I replied, "and you're acting like I'm crazy for noticing." He rubbed his temples. We sat on opposite ends of a beige couch, while she asked the usual questions. How long we've been married, what brought us there, what we hoped to get out of it. I let Jordan go first. He talked about stress, about work, about wanting less conflict at home. He used words like communication breakdown and different conflict styles. It was polished, sanitized. When it was my turn, I surprised myself with how calm my voice sounded. "My mother-in-law went through my phone and deleted every wedding photo I took," I said. "Then lied about it. My husband told me to let it go because they're just pictures, and he doesn't want drama with his mom. That's why we're here." Jordan flinched. "That's not exactly—" "Is that accurate from your perspective?" the therapist asked him gently. He shifted. "Okay, yes, she thinks my mom deleted them," he said. "But we don't know that. Phones glitch. Storage fills up. My mom's older. She barely knows how to use her own phone, let alone hack someone else's. She emptied, recently deleted," I said. "That's a whole separate step." The therapist nodded. "Jordan," she said, "let's assume for a moment that Simone's version is exactly what happened. That someone did go into her phone without her permission and erase sentimental photos. How serious would that feel to you?" He hesitated. "I mean, I'd be annoyed," he said, "but we got the professional photos, you know? The important ones. So I just don't see why we'd torpedo family peace over this." "What do you hear him saying?" the therapist asked me. "That my feelings are less important than his mom's peace," I said. "That my memories are negotiable. That as long as the official version exists, my personal one is disposable." The therapist looked between us. "This isn't really about technology," she said softly. "It's about alignment. About whose version of reality is allowed to take up space. About whose comfort gets prioritized." I felt my throat tighten. Somebody finally put words to the thing choking me. "Jordan," she continued, "whether or not your mother intended harm, your wife experienced harm. Can you validate that without jumping to defend your mom?" He swallowed. "I don't want Simone to hurt," he said. "I really don't. But my mom, she's old school. She doesn't mean anything by it. She can be controlling, yeah, but she's also done a lot for us. She helped with the down payment on the car. She loaned us money when Simone got laid off. It's complicated." There it was. Debt. Not just financial, emotional, generational. I got it. I did. Black families don't always have the luxury of clean boundaries when survival is at stake. Elders hold keys to money, to history, to community. You don't just slam the door on them. But I wasn't asking him to cut her off. I was asking him to tell her, don't erase my wife. Helping us doesn't give her the right to rewrite me, I said, quietly. The therapist nodded. That's the tension we're sitting with, she said. Competing loyalties. The family you came from, Jordan, and the family you chose. And right now, Simone feels like she's losing that competition. We went to 6 sessions. Some were good. Some were a rerun of the same arguments we'd been having at home. Every time the therapist tried to get Jordan to say what my mom did was wrong, he'd slide away from the sentence like it was coated in oil. I wouldn't have done it, he'd say. I can see how it made you feel. I wish the pictures were still there. But never. That was wrong. Never. I'll talk to her and set a boundary. The breakthrough didn't come in therapy. It came at brunch. It was a Saturday. We just left our appointment. We went to this little spot around the corner because Jordan said, let's get pancakes. Reset, not make the whole day heavy. We were halfway through our food when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled. Mom. He answered. Put her on speaker like he always did, because she hates talking to a dead line. Hey, Ma, he said. We're just finishing up brunch. With Simone? She asked, and I could hear the way she rapped my name in polite distance. Yes, with Simone, he said. Well, don't let me interrupt your little date, Patricia replied. I just wanted to remind you about dinner tomorrow. Your aunt and uncle are coming. I'm making a roast. And oh, her voice brightened. I found the most beautiful frame for that wedding portrait I like. The one of just you and me at the reception. The photographer captured such a pure moment. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Nice, Jordan said. Can't wait to see it. Patricia lowered her voice, like I couldn't still hear her through the table. Did Simone ever calm down about those pictures? She asked. Honestly, I think it was for the best. Some of those angles were not flattering. She'll thank me one day. The world went quiet. The clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation, the music, all of it faded under the roar in my ears. Jordan's eyes flicked up to mine. He knew. He knew she'd just confessed. His lips parted, closed. He looked like a kid caught between 2 burning buildings, trying to decide which one to run into. Mom, he said slowly. You're on speaker. There was a beat of silence. Then Patricia laughed. A brittle, too high sound. Oh, she said. Well, I didn't mean anything by it. You know me, always running my mouth. I just think some things are better left curated. Did you delete my wedding photos from my phone? I asked, my voice so calm it scared me. She huffed. Oh, Simone, don't be so dramatic. You had hundreds of pictures. I might have cleared a few that were unnecessary. You had your phone out all night. It was distracting. People noticed. So yes, I said, you went into my phone, without my permission, and erased photos from my wedding day. Don't say it like that, she snapped. I was helping. You're always saying you don't have storage. And frankly, some of those images were not appropriate for a married woman. All that flesh. All that sweat. A wife should be modest. Something in me snapped so cleanly I could feel the edges. Jordan, I said, not taking my eyes off him. Say something. He looked at his plate, at his hands, at everything but my face. Ma, he said finally, you shouldn't have gone through her phone. Patricia scoffed. You shouldn't have gone through her phone, he repeated, a little firmer. And you certainly shouldn't have deleted anything without asking. It was the closest he'd ever come to saying you were wrong. It wasn't enough. Honestly, Patricia said, recovering, this is exactly what I told you in therapy. Jordan, she holds on to things, little things. You need a wife who brings you peace, not one who creates conflict over pixels. There it was. Not just erasing my photos, but questioning my right to care. I looked at my husband, waiting for him to say, "No, Mom." My wife is allowed to be upset when you violate her privacy. My wife is allowed to draw lines. He didn't. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Can we not do this right now?" he murmured. "We're in public." Patricia, hearing the fatigue in his voice, pounced. "Exactly my point," she said. "Simone, you're making everything so dramatic. You have the official album. You have the nice pictures we picked. Let the rest go. That's what grown women do. They rise above. They don't cling to every unflattering angle of the past." I hung up. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the phone. I just pressed the red button, placed it gently on the table, and said, "I'm done." Jordan stared. "With brunch?" he asked weakly. "With this conversation?" "With pretending this is small," I said. "With letting your mother define what parts of my life are worthy of existing. With a marriage where my memories, my boundaries, my voice have to be run through Patricia's approval system before they count. Simone, don't." "I'm going to move out," I said. It came out of me like air I'd been holding for months. His mouth fell open. "Over pictures?" "Over a pattern," I said. "Over the fact that she just admitted to violating my privacy, and you still sound more worried about how this looks than how it feels. Over the fact that I don't trust you to protect the parts of me that aren't convenient for your family." His eyes were wide, wounded. "Where will you go?" he asked, voice cracking. "Home," I said. "To my mama's, for now. To someplace I'm not constantly being edited." I did go home. I slept in my old bedroom with the faded posters and the too small bed. My mama sat with me while I cried, fed me, prayed over me. She didn't say, "I told you so," even though she easily could have. She said, "I watched that woman try to crop me out of your family pictures, and I bit my tongue for your sake. But I'll be damned if I watch her crop you out of your own life." I filed for separation 2 weeks later. Patricia called once, left a voicemail. "You're throwing away a good man over some photographs," she sniffed. "No wonder your generation can't stay married." Jordan texted more than he called. We went back and forth, about counseling, about time, about apologies. He told me he loved me, told me he'd talk to his mom more firmly, told me he'd buy me the nicest camera I wanted, that we'd create new memories together. "I don't want a new camera," I texted back once. "I want a husband who didn't need proof to believe me." In the quiet of that little bedroom, surrounded by boxes of my life, I picked up my old DSLR, the one I used in college, before I got too busy and too self-conscious to carry it around. I started taking pictures of my mama's hands kneading dough, of neighborhood kids jumping double dutch on the sidewalk, of aunties in church hats, of teenagers on stoops, of regular, uncurated black joy. I posted a few online, just to my small Instagram. No fancy captions, just images and tiny stories. People responded. "Who shot this?" one comment asked. "This feels like home. Do you do weddings?" Another DM said, "I'm tired of photographers who only know one kind of bride." I stared at that message for a long time. My mother-in-law had deleted my wedding photos to control how my marriage looked. What if my revenge wasn't just leaving? What if it was making sure other women like me never had to beg anyone to protect their memories? What if I became the one person in the room who would never let someone else decide which parts of their joy deserved to exist? That night, I opened a new account, @uncroppedlove. Tagline: weddings and real-life moments no one gets to delete. It started small. Friends, cousins, a co-worker of my cousin. A girl from church who'd heard "you're too much" one too many times and wanted a photographer who understood. But as I edited those photos to enhance, not erase, as I handed over galleries full of loud laughter and crooked crowns and sweat and tears and all the messy, beautiful human parts, something in me started to heal. Patricia had taken my personal archive. I was building a new one now. Not just for me. For every black bride whose mother-in-law clutched her pearls at the reception playlist. For every woman whose joy had been cropped, filtered, and deleted by people who meant well. The marriage was dying, but a different kind of love story was being born. One where I was the main character, the narrator, and the one holding the camera. And I hadn't even gotten to the part yet where Patricia would have to see my work everywhere and realize that the photos she tried to erase had become the foundation of the life she could never control. 2 years later, I am standing on a chair in a crowded community center, shouting for a DJ, while a bride's auntie waves a chicken wing at me and yells, "Make sure you get my good side, baby." I laugh and fire 3 shots in a row. Click, click, click. The light catches her hoop earrings, the grease shine on her fingers, the joy on her face. It's chaos and perfection, and everything I never got to keep from my own wedding. "Got you, auntie," I say, hopping down. She grins. "That's why we hired you. I saw that line on your website." She wags a saucy finger. "Nobody gets to delete your joy." I felt that in my spirit. I did too. Uncropped love started as a private revenge fantasy and turned into a real business when I wasn't looking. Word spread faster than my marketing ever could. A wedding photographer who doesn't flinch at sweat, who lets you be loud, who will catch the moment your cousin's wig slips mid-electric slide and send you the shot anyway, because that's family, because that's you. I go home after gigs smelling like incense and hairspray and Hennessy. My back hurts, my feet ache, my SD cards are full of people refusing to shrink. On nights like this, when I sit cross-legged in front of my computer importing thousands of images, I think of Patricia. How she treated memory like a weapon instead of a gift. How she taught me accidentally that whoever owns the camera gets to decide what survives. My phone buzzes as I'm backing up today's files to 3 separate drives. The paranoia never left. It just got organized. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail. I get a lot of "Hi, Queen. We'd love to collaborate, but we don't have a budget" calls now. Something in my gut says answer. Hello? There's a pause. Then a voice I know too well, sharpened by time. Simone. My whole body goes still. "Patricia," I say. She clears her throat. The last time I heard her voice, it was through a lawyer, not a phone. The divorce was finalized 18 months ago. I signed my name on 15 pieces of paper and walked out of the courthouse lighter than air. I haven't seen Jordan since we split our little dining set in half, 2 chairs each, like a custody agreement for furniture. "Thank you for picking up," she says. There's none of her old crisp superiority in it. She sounds tired. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I say honestly. "What do you need?" She inhales sharply, like she's swallowing something. "I wanted to ask about your photography," she says. We have an event coming up, a very important one. I was told you're very in demand now." The words sound like they hurt her throat. I spin slowly in my chair, looking at the photos on my wall. Black couples in all shapes and sizes, laughing, crying, kissing under bad fluorescent church lights and high-end chandeliers alike. "What event?" I ask. "My daughter," she says. "Jordan's sister. You remember Dominique?" I do. Dominique, who once pulled me aside at a barbecue and whispered, "You know you don't have to let Mom talk to you like that, right?" before handing me a beer. "She's getting married," Patricia says. "She saw your work online. Apparently you're somewhat of a thing now." There's a trace of her old sarcasm, but it's thin, stretched over something brittle. She insists on having you. Says if we don't book you, she'll elope at the courthouse in a jumpsuit and I can watch it on Instagram Live. I can't help it. I snort. That sounds like Dominique. She is stubborn, Patricia mutters. Anyway, I told her it would be awkward, given our history. She said if I refused, it would be because I'm too proud to admit I was wrong. She pauses. I don't want to prove her right. There it is. The words I spent years starving for. I spin back toward my monitor, buying myself a second. What exactly are you asking me, Patricia? I say. To show up and pretend none of it happened? To make pretty pictures you can hang on your wall while we act like you didn't go into my phone and erase my life? She exhales shakily. I'm asking if you'd consider shooting my daughter's wedding, she says quietly. Professionally. As a job. For her. Not for her, I note. For Dominique. And she adds, voice even lower, if you'd be willing to talk. About that day. About the pictures. About everything. For a moment, I imagine saying no. I imagine telling her to hire someone who loves beige and silence and curated families with all the sharp edges sanded off. I imagine hanging up and blocking her number next to the old one labeled Jordan Don't. But behind her voice, I see Dominique. I see a bride standing in a dress, wondering years from now why her pictures don't feel like the day she remembers. I promised myself no one else's joy would get deleted on my watch. Okay, I say slowly. I'll meet with Dominique. If she wants me and we can agree on terms, I'll consider it. But this won't be like last time. What do you mean? She asks, wary. I mean, I say, you won't touch my gear. You won't touch my files. You won't tell me which moments are appropriate. My contract is with the couple, not with you. They choose what's kept, and they get the full gallery, unedited in the emotional sense. Silence. You'd really send everything? She says, incredulous. Everything, I say. The tears, the sweat, the crooked wigs, the flyaway edges, the real stuff. That's a lot of vulnerability, she murmurs. Exactly, I say, which is why you won't be in charge of it. We meet a week later at a Black-owned cafe halfway between my neighborhood and theirs. Dominique bursts in late, natural hair piled high, laughter spilling out ahead of her like glitter. Simone, she squeals, hugging me before I can stand. Oh my God, I am obsessed with your work. That shot you did of the bride with her grandma on the dance floor? I cried real tears in my office. My manager thought somebody died. Patricia follows behind her, slower, carefully put together in her pearls. She nods at me, the tiniest hint of humility softening her eyes. Simone, she says, thank you for coming. We go over the usual things. Timeline, budget, shot list. I don't want stiff stuff, Dominique says, stabbing her croissant for emphasis. We can get a few of those for Grandma's mantle, fine, but I want the real moments. The ugly cry in the back hallway. The last minute, did we forget the rings? Panic. Uncle Terrence cheating at spades. All of it. You're my ideal client, I say. Patricia clears her throat. And in terms of editing, she asks carefully, if there are any unflattering pictures of me or... Mom, Dominique groans. We talked about this. You are not getting final cut on my wedding. Patricia presses her lips together. I am simply asking, she says, whether Simone will be discreet. I don't post anything without permission, I say. Ever. What I send you is between you and your husband, but I don't believe in deleting reality to protect pride. If you want that, I'm not your photographer. Patricia looks at me for a long moment. Then she nods. I understand, she says. And I can tell, for once, she actually does. We sign the contract, payment up front, clear clauses about access, backups, and zero third-party tampering. As we pack up to leave, Patricia lingers by the table. Simone, she says softly, may I speak to you for a moment? Dominique rolls her eyes. Do not ruin this, she warns her mother playfully, then floats outside to call her fiancé. It's just us. I brace myself. I owe you an apology, Patricia says. The world tilts for a second. She looks smaller, not physically, but the armor is thinner. The smug certainty she used to wear like perfume is gone. I did delete those photos, she says. All of them. I told myself I was helping, curating, protecting our family from exposure, from judgment. Really, I was embarrassed by how loud it was, how sweaty, how black. Her voice cracks on the last word. My mother hated cameras, she continues. She used to say, "Don't let white folks catch you slipping, Trish. They'll turn it into a joke." My whole life, I thought survival meant always being on guard. Always neat, always proper, always palatable. When you kept pulling out that phone, catching us in real moments, my chest felt tight, like you were breaking every rule that kept us safe. She looks at me, eyes glossy. That doesn't excuse what I did, she says. I invaded your privacy. I stole something from you I had no right to touch. And when you called me on it, I gaslit you, made you feel crazy, made my son choose between us, knowing he would choose me, because that's what I trained him to do. I am deeply ashamed of that. I swallow hard. I've imagined this moment so many times. In my fantasies, I always delivered some perfect monologue, sharp, eloquent, devastating. Right now, my tongue feels heavy. Why now? I finally ask. Why say this now? Because I saw your work, she says simply. At first by accident, someone shared a post. Then on purpose. I searched your name. I read that blog you wrote, the one about losing your pictures. I recognized myself in every terrible thing you described, and I hated it. Hated that you were right. Hated that I'd become the kind of woman who made another black woman feel small for existing fully. She exhales. And, she adds quietly, because when the pipe burst in our basement last year, it ruined half my photo albums, including the one from your wedding. There it is, the universe with its messy sense of symmetry. In the moment, she says, all I could think was, at least we still have the digital copies. Then I remembered what I'd done. I sat on the floor in that nasty water and realized I had robbed myself, too. I erased the only proof I had of my son looking at a woman with that much love. Her voice breaks completely then. She presses a tissue to her eyes. I thought about calling you, she says, begging for any scraps you might have left, but I knew I hadn't earned the right to ask. We sit there in silence for a moment. I still have them, I say. She looks up sharply. What? I backed up my phone to the cloud before the wedding, I say. I didn't realize it until months later. The day I moved out, actually. I was packing and got a notification. I sat on the floor and cried over a slideshow my phone had made. Your wedding day, 2 years ago today. I can still see it. The cheap apartment, the half-packed boxes, my younger self beaming at the camera, unaware of everything that would come crashing down. I couldn't look at them for a long time, I continue. They hurt too much, but I couldn't delete them either. They're in a folder on my backup drive called Proof I Was There. Patricia's hand trembles around her tissue. Would you? She starts, then stops. Her throat works. Would you be willing to share them with me? With Jordan? He asked once. I told him I didn't have them. I believe she did. I also believe there's a version of me who would say no. Who would relish letting her sit in that loss? Who would say, now you know what it feels like? But that version of me is younger, raw, still standing in a parking lot bleeding from invisible wounds. I'm not there anymore. I'll send them to Dominique, I say. They're her brother's history too. If she wants to share them with you, that's her choice. But you don't get direct access to what you tried to erase. She nods slowly. That's fair, she says. More than fair. She hesitates. Your business, she adds, glancing at the logo on my laptop case. It's beautiful, the way you capture people. I see now what I tried to kill in you. That fearless eye, that refusal to make us small. A tiny, ironic smile tugs at my mouth. You helped build it, I say. If you hadn't taken my pictures, I probably would have stayed a PR girl with a little camera hobby. I built a whole career on the opposite of what you did to me. She lets out a choked laugh. I suppose that's my unintended contribution. We part with a handshake that isn't quite warm, but isn't cold either. The day of Dominique's wedding is hot and bright and loud as hell. I move through it like muscle memory, checking my settings, directing group shots, disappearing into corners for the candid moments. Jordan is there. Of course he is. He's the man walking his sister down the aisle. The best man. The one giving a speech later that makes half the room cry and the other half shout, "Say that then." We talk once, briefly, in the hallway outside the groom's room. "Hey, Simone," he says, hands in his pockets. "Hey, Jordan." "You look happy," he says, really happy. "I am," I say. "You?" He shrugs one shoulder. "Working on it," he says honestly. We don't rehash. We don't apologize. We don't pretend we can drag the past into this moment and make it behave. We just nod at each other, like two people who survived the same storm and learned different lessons. At the reception, Patricia catches me once, near the DJ booth. "Make sure you get some of the slow songs," she says. "Not just the rowdy ones." "Already on it," I reply. "We can have both." She nods. When the DJ plays Before I Let Go, Dominique kicks off her heels and loses her mind in the middle of the floor. Aunties, uncles, cousins, everybody floods in. It's sweaty and offbeat and perfect. I climb on my usual chair and shoot till my fingers cramp. Later, when I deliver the gallery, I include everything. The tender porchlight portraits, the layered group shots. Dominique's mascara-streaked face as she and her new husband pray with their foreheads touching. And the wild, joyful, unflattering stuff too. A week after I send the link, my phone buzzes. Group text. Me, Dominique, and Patricia. It's a screenshot of one of my photos. Dominique in the middle of the dance floor. Hair frizzed, dress hitched up, arms thrown around two cousins, all of them screaming lyrics into the camera. Underneath, Patricia has written, "This is my favorite one. Thank you for not deleting our joy." I stare at it for a long time. Then I type, "You're welcome. Nobody gets to erase you on my watch." That night, I plug in my backup drive. For the first time in years, I open the folder called Proof I Was There. I watch my younger self walk down the aisle, see my mama fixing my veil, see Jordan's face when he first caught sight of me. It hurts. It also doesn't, because I know how that story ends now. Not with erasure, not with a woman broken in a parking garage, but with a different version of me standing on chairs, shouting over DJs, making sure other women never have to wonder if they mattered. I select a handful of the old images, my mama's hands, my friends dancing, my granny asleep in a chair with her church fan still in her lap, the pieces that belong to me. I upload them into my Uncropped Love archive under a new private collection, Simone Chapter 1. I don't share them. I don't need to. It's enough to know they're safe, that whatever anyone tried to delete, whatever anyone might try in the future, there will always be a black woman somewhere with a camera and a contract and a spine, saying, "No, you don't get to crop her out. Not anymore."